What goes through your mind before you get on a roller coaster? Do you ever question its safety and think of the worst case scenarios? Or do you just go for it, trusting things will be fine? Amusement parks are fun, but let's be honest, there have been quite a lot of incidents that often make us wonder if it's a good idea to get on a ride or not. Don't worry though, according to experts, the chances of getting hurt in an amusement park ride are 1 in 24 million, so it's most likely that you'll never get to have this bad experience. Now, if you're wondering what are the rides that are most likely to put your life in danger, you might want to check out the list I have for you today. In this video, I'll be introducing you to 10 of the most dangerous amusement rides around the world. Even though they're dangerous, I'm sure you'll love to give them a try someday, especially if you love extreme adventures. Stay with me all the way to the end of the list and find out what makes these rides dangerous and why some of them don't operate anymore. Number 10. Derby Racer Roller Coaster. We start with a ride that was demolished in 1936, but it was quite intense for its time. When the Derby Racer roller coaster opened in 1911 in Massachusetts, it was one of many racing coasters that became popular at the beginning of the century. It was made out of wood, and it only cost $140,000 to be made. That's pretty much nothing in our times, but it was a ton of money back then. Sadly, this coaster gained fame after a man was thrown off the coaster shortly after it opened to the public. Obviously, the place was off to a bad start. And honestly, it was gonna get worse. The place had to shut down operations for 2 weeks, but 6 years later another incident happened, which was just one of a handful of awful accidents that eventually led to a lawsuit in 1935. The first Derby Racer was finally demolished in 1936, but a second one was built by another designer. However, this one was also demolished about 11 years after it opened, and while we don't know exactly much about it, we do know that this ride scared enough people to keep them away from amusement rides for a while. Number 9. Splash Mountain. Next on this list we have a ride that recently made the news. Splash Mountain is hands down one of the most popular rides in Disney World. Even if you haven't been to the parks, you've probably seen it in advertising or any videos about the parks. What starts as a nice river ride ends in a splash that will surely get you wet. Recently though, one of their log-shaped boats got filled with water while 5 passengers were on board. The park authorities asked the riders to stay on board, but they were in knee-deep water. So they decided to get out and stood on a walkway right next to them. The staff at the park were not happy with the guests for not staying in, but one of the riders says that the logs sank as soon as they stepped out. Back in the year 2000, another scary thing happened. A guy climbed out of his boat midway through the ride and was struck by another boat. This made parks around the world debate over how to restrain passengers in peaceful, non-threatening rides such as Splash Mountain. You'd think that rides like this one are safe, but apparently they can turn out to be pretty dangerous depending on how the riders are restrained to their boats. Number 8. The Grave Pool. You'll see New Jersey's Action Park a few times on this list. Unfortunately, a lot of the action happening at this park has ended in terrible accidents. Their first mention on this list is thanks to their now called High Tide Wave Pool, which people have baptized with the name of the Grave Pool. While this is not necessarily a ride, it is still an attraction that deserves to be mentioned. When the pool first opened, it was about 8 feet deep in an area that was about half the size of a football field. While that sounds like a lot of space, I'm not sure it was ideal for its maximum capacity of 1,000 people. The pool was so intense that it required 12 and sometimes even 20 lifeguards on duty. In average, lifeguards make 2 or 3 saves per week, but the lifeguards at the park made about 30 saves on a regular weekend. And sadly, that was not enough to save the lives of 3 swimmers in the 80s. Now, the pool is shallower and easier to manage, but we're always gonna know it as one of the craziest and most dangerous wave pools in the world. Number 7. SCAD Diving. A suspended catch air device, known as SCAD, is part of multiple amusement parks around the world. The concept is quite simple. It involves suspending people in midair at about 150 feet from the ground and then dropping them back down without any safety equipment. They just rely on a safety net that's meant to catch them at around 50 feet before they hit the ground. Gee, what could go wrong? Sometimes the net hasn't been in the right place, and sometimes people miss the net completely. This has resulted in a lot of injuries, including a 12-year-old girl who got a ton of fractures, a brain injury, and paralysis that lasted for years. I'm actually a little surprised that there are no deaths that have been recorded at any of these rides. But I'm also pretty surprised to know that they still operate regardless of all the incidents that have happened. If you ever try one of these, I beg you to please make sure that the net is at the right place to catch you. Number 6. The Kayak Experience. And here's another entry from New Jersey's Action Park. This time it's an attempt to recreate the thrill of a whitewater rafting experience inside an amusement park. Of course, if it's inside a manageable park, it should be fun and safe, am I right? Unfortunately, no. While tipping over and getting back on your kayak shouldn't be risky in this kind of environment, things turned out deadly for a poor guy who stepped on an exposed electrical wire while trying to get back inside his boat. Of course, this event resulted in him getting shocked to death, as well as 2 of his family members who got electrocuted. However, they did survive, and the park didn't take any responsibility for the accident. They claimed that they hadn't violated any regulations. Although, to be fair, there were not many back in the day, and it was events like this one which led to authorities to take theme park safety a bit more seriously. It sounds like real-life whitewater rafting is way safer than this. At least in the real rapids, you don't have to worry about stepping on exposed electrical wiring. Don't worry though, this attraction has been closed since 1982. Number 5. Bonsai Pipeline. No, I'm not talking about the famous surf break in Hawaii. Bonsai Pipeline was also the name of one of the most dangerous rides in California, one of the areas with the most amusement parks ever. Now, let's point something out. Most of the rides I mentioned so far have been dangerous because of the way they were built or because the people in charge of the parks failed at providing a safe ride for the guests. But in the case of the Bonsai Pipeline, things got out of control because the visitors didn't follow the instructions of the park guard. Around 30 high school students overcrowded this water park ride, which made the entire thing collapse. Several of them got injured and one of them died. The park guard tried hard to keep them from doing this, but, well, you know, high school students sometimes can be a bit too pushy, and sadly, their urge to break the rules ended in a terrible day for everyone involved. A month after that, 17 of these students were able to get their high school diplomas in wheelchairs. I'm going to take this opportunity to encourage all high school students out there to please listen to the authorities, at least for amusement park rides. Sometimes things can turn out dangerous because we push boundaries that were never meant to be pushed. Number 4. Cannonball Loop. You've heard about this one before, and here we have it again. The Cannonball is a must for any list that features extreme, insane, and of course, dangerous rides. And guess where it was at? That's right, it was a part of good old Action Park in New Jersey. This looping water slide became famous for all the wrong reasons. First of all, there were rumors going around claiming that a child got stuck at the top of the ride, which was quite unexpected for a lot of people, except for those who were at the testing stages of the slide. They say that prior to opening, a bunch of test dummies came out dismembered. Can you imagine if those test dummies were people? That would have been the worst lawsuit ever in the world of amusement parks. However, the people that were mostly exposed to the dangers of this ride were not the visitors, but the staff. Working at this park meant that you had to try the looping water slide before visitors even came in. Number 3. Human Trebuchet. And again, another classic for these lists, the Human Trebuchet. If you ever wondered what it was like to be thrown from a catapult, then this ride was meant for you. Except for the fact that the landing spot could potentially be in the wrong position. After flying through the air at 60 miles per hour without any protection, riders were supposed to land on a net about 75 feet away from their starting point. However, an unlucky 19-year-old guy missed the landing net and could not survive the incident. Prior to that, there were other incidents that involved broken pelvises and other injuries to visitors who weren't able to have a safe landing. This happened back in 2002, and we haven't really heard about this type of ride anywhere else in the world. But if they do it, I just hope they make sure that people have a safe place to land. Now it's time for the day's best pick. We can see a part of the card getting detached from the ride and falling off to a deadly end. Next on this list is a ride that doesn't exist anymore, but when it did, it experienced what some people call the worst roller coaster accident ever. Number 2. The Big Dipper. Battersea Fun Fair was one of the coolest places in Europe, at least for those who loved roller coasters. The place was home to the famous Big Dipper, a wooden roller coaster that was the main attraction of the park. Sadly, in May of 1972, one of the trains got detached from the ride. It rolled back and collided with another train. This resulted in 5 children losing their lives and 13 injuries. 2 years prior to that, the wooden roller coaster had also suffered severe damage after a fire. The Big Dipper had to shut down operations, and since it was the main attraction of the fair became less and less popular until it finally closed in 1974. I guess that's what happens when your main attraction becomes a scenario of one of the deadliest accidents in history. Before we move on, do me a favor. My analytics show that only about 15% of you watching are actually subscribed. Come on guys, what's up with that? Can you guys please hit the subscribe button? You guys watch my videos every day anyway, so you might as well subscribe and keep up to date with every video we put out. Number 1. Son of Beast. And of course, the ride at the top of our list had to be a wooden one, because what can be more dangerous than that? I would choose a steel roller coaster over a wooden one any day. But when Son of Beast opened in Ohio, it had a jaw-dropping height, speed, and length. Everyone wanted to ride it. It was definitely an intimidating ride, but one that no one wanted to miss. But the fun of this thrilling ride came to an end when a split in the wooden track created a bump that forced one of the cars to suddenly stop, injuring 27 people. 3 years later, one of them reported that a blood vessel in her brain had ruptured due to the accident, and this made the ride close for good. Well, most of the dangerous rides don't exist anymore, and honestly that makes a lot of sense. I doubt rides like these would be able to operate today with all the regulations that we have, barring Splash Mountain of course. What's the most dangerous amusement park ride that you've seen? What was it like? Let us know in the comment section down below. With all that said and done, that's our video for today folks, and I will see you all next time. Later everybody.